create a new React project. And this is different than creating a regular index, a regular project that we've been doing. We're going to do something called npx, create React app, and then we're going to say the name of the app. We'll say my new news app. Okay? We run this command. We wait a little bit. React is going out to the internet and getting a bunch of stuff for us. Oh man. Okay, so I gotta change npx, my news app. My news app. Okay, everything's downloading. React is getting some stuff for us. Blah, blah, blah.
So you have to do that every time, right?
If you want to create a completely new project, yes. So now we're going to change it to my news app. We're going to move into this project. Now we can run npm install. We do this just to be safe. Sometimes we need to run this. We need to get all dependencies. Bootstrap depends on JavaScript. JavaScript depends on this. Blah, blah, blah. So we're just getting all the packages that we need. And just to get ahead of ourselves, I'm gonna just copy some data from this because I don't even deal with an API request right now. Okay, we want to make sure our component is working correctly.
Recording?
Yes. Yes, I'm recording. Okay, so it looks like everything went okay. So we can go ahead and run npm start. And it should open up a new browser window for us. And we can see the default React template. Every project will have this. Okay, so that looks good. So let's go ahead and open up our code editor and test to make sure that we can adjust things. So every single project will have an app.js. This is a special file. I don't want you guys touching anything in this yet. So I'm gonna say hello world. Now expect this to change, okay? All right. So now, because we're testing, let's go ahead and just hard code some data in here. Okay? Const news equals an array. Is that? Okay, I want to copy just this part. Just this array right here, okay? Okay, that's a bunch of code. We're gonna ignore all this, okay? Now what can we do, guys? We can do some JavaScript, right? We can do, what do I call it? News. Okay, we can say news.map article.
So you did hard code as opposed to the fetching and the rend?
Yes, I'm just hard coding this because I don't want to. We haven't talked about state and we haven't talked about component lifecycle yet. So I'm just hard coding this to demonstrate mainly passing function data back and forth. Okay. So now for every article, we're just going to render the article's title, article.title. Okay. So if I save it and we hop back over to here, can't do this. I did something wrong. I didn't do this wrong. This would actually run, but ESLint is not letting our code run because we need to follow certain coding conventions. $272. Okay, so I think I did this wrong again. There we go. On line 271, all we did was map over this array that we hard coded and defined right here. But you can notice that like React is being very fickle with us. It's not letting us do a lot of complicated stuff right here. Even though we go right here, do this, we do return right here, React is going to complain. It doesn't understand that. 1 second. 1 second, guys. Okay, React is about to complain somewhere. It's complaining everywhere. Okay, so how do we get past this problem? We're going to create a new component. Class news article extends react.component. And we're going to define the body of it right here. What does every single React component have to have? A render function. A render function has parentheses, it has curly braces. That determines what's in the function, right? So let's just return a div. And we're going to say this div is, let's say background color is red, height is 100, width is 100. Okay? Okay, I did this wrong. What'd you say? We don't need that if it's on one line. So now, for every single news article, let's just return one component news article here, okay? Sorry. Okay, so that looks like that's working. Let's interesting. So let's go ahead and add some margin. Does that look good? Okay, so we got a red box indicating each and every single article. But that's not what we want. We want a news site. We don't want a red box site. So how can we do this? Well, we can see that on line 277, each time the news loop runs, we're touching an individual element, which is one of these elements right here, one of these objects right here. Each time this runs, we have a new object. And what are the keys? Source, author, title, description, blah, blah, blah. Okay? So, in our news article, we want this to be more intelligent. And we wanted to make this multiple lines. Someone just told me a second ago that we needed to make it have these. We don't have to have these unless we have multiple lines. Okay? So now, let's just console.log to see what props we have. This.props. And we're going to confirm this by saying this is in our news article. Okay? So refresh, open up our console. Oops. We can see that each time this red dot box entered, each time the news article component rendered, we had a new object. But the object has a problem. What's the problem, guys? We has no properties. We pass each news article 0 properties. So they can be no different. They're going to be exactly the same. So we need to do something smarter. We could hard code right here. We'll just say color is equal to red. Well, what would you anticipate happening over here? Every single news article has the exact same property, red. That's not good enough. We want our news article to be smarter. So we're going to use our spread operator. And we're going to spread all the properties of each article into our news article component. So we'll save, refresh, and we can see that each time the news article component renders, this .props is actually quite different. Right? The last article was from who? The Washington Post, and then this one was from YouTube, etc. Okay? Okay, so now we're getting somewhere. So now we can confirm that on line 270, this .props, there was actually some useful data. So let's go ahead and make this sexier. So we'll add h1, then we'll say this.props.title, okay? And then we'll say a p, and we'll say this is this.props. Why do some of them have descriptions that are null? Description. Okay, let's just do that. This would be a good use case. Now we're going to figure out why we need to have conditionals in our functions sometimes. So let's save it. We'll hop over here, and we can see that this looks shitty. Okay, so now the problem is we need this to be wider. Say 100%. Okay, that looks all right. That looks okay, etc. So you guys can quickly see how this can get interesting. Okay, but you notice how some of these have no description? Sometimes we're going to want to validate our data. We've had this happen a couple times throughout the class. Our data was not validated. I don't want to see a news article that doesn't have a description or a body. So what can we do? Well, inside our news article, if this.props.description.length is less than 1 character, we can return an empty div. This is one way of dealing with this problem. There are many. Okay? This is just simply one way. Oh, because sometimes it's null. So now, what did I show you guys earlier? Sometimes we need to validate the data. This is another form of validation. So I'm gonna make sure that we have this first. I'm gonna make sure that we have a description. Oh no, okay. We can even do this simpler. If we do not have this .props.description, then we'll return. So let's just let's see if this works. And then save it. Okay, there we go. So if the article does not have a description, we returned. Wait, is this a description? I'm confused. Why is this one inside here? I think these all have descriptions. I'm pretty sure. This is interesting. Why is this working this way? Why is the red inside of why is the text inside here? Okay, yeah, that's probably what it is. Let's just check. Let's make sure. So this was a description. So now you guys can see how we can validate our data by using logic that is related to one component. The app should not give a shit whether or not how the news article component looks or how it works. It should just know how to use it. That is the objective here. Our app component right now, it's in one file, but in the future, we're not going to put components in the same file. Do you see the structure of this project right here? Just like you guys saw on templates, HTML5 templates, they typically put it inside a JS file. What goes inside the JS folder, guys? Yes, what goes inside the CSS folder, guys? Exactly. So inside our source folder, okay, we're going to create a new folder called components. Now we're going to create a new file called newsarticle.js. Okay? Now we can just copy this entire thing right here. Okay? We copy this, and we need to do an extra step. Okay? This is how we're gonna get. This is where we move from being past junior developers to yeah. That's exactly what we need. We need to export this. Basically, this. We need to export. We need to tell React that this component can be available in other places. So now we'll say export default news article. Okay? So now we have another problem. You see how React's complaining right here? We also need to import React to be used. Okay? So now this looks like okay. This looks like it's running. Let's just leave this console log to confirm. Okay? Okay, so now that we're exporting from one component, right? We need to import this component. So we can do import news article from, and this is a relative import. So from our app.js, how can we get to newsarticle.js? Components, news article. Okay? No, you don't need to do that. Okay, so if everything worked correctly, I expect us to see exactly the same thing that we just saw. I'm gonna save this, I'm gonna save this, I refresh, everything looks okay. And these words right here, export default, they mean things. Right now, we're not going to worry about them. Okay, we're not going to worry about what they mean. I'll tell you when you should use which one, but right now, ignore them. But just know that long term, whenever we build a complicated application, we're not going to put all the classes in one folder, all the components in one folder. It'd become impossible to think about, right? And this is the strength of, now we have a very strong, now this is going to help us out a lot. Because now, this news article component is responsible for exactly one thing. What is that, guys? Yes, Phương An? It's in charge of rendering our news articles. Okay? Right now, this is very simple. We're not actually changing the data at all. But you guys know, one day, we can do a lot of more stuff with this, right? So, for example, Amazon, right? We see a list of goods. Let's look at laptops. This component, right? Imagine this is a cat component, right? Imagine this is all a cat component, right? Inside of here, we could also render photos, right? What if a cat had multiple photos? Right, guys? What if a cat had a price? What if you wanted to buy it? Also, you could have an address. Where could the address be? How many of the cats could you buy? It's the same pattern. All this logic on the screen right here, guys, should be encapsulated inside this one class right here. Well, not all of it, but the one that has to do with the cat. Because this page right here, all the data here is not the same thing as the logic here on this page. These are called cards. Our cards have data inside them. When we click on a card, it takes us to an item. And anyways, just know that the point of this is that we can encapsulate our logic and silo it. It's gonna help us out long term. When we were doing the Twitter app, we had a very big problem that may not have seemed like a problem to you guys because we haven't actually ran into this problem yet. But for example, I go live, right? I have access to this code, but you'll find that get application state, for example, this function, I can access it anywhere. And just know that global state is a bad thing. Global state is a bad thing. We don't want to have functions available anywhere. We do not want to have variables available anywhere. Even in the project that we did today, guys, you guys could see that we got name was used multiple times, color was used multiple times. And if we use the same variables as another person on our team, another developer, we're gonna have issues. We're gonna have issues in terms of why does this bug keep popping up, blah, 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 blah. We've only just started getting into the types of issues that can come up because we haven't actually worked on a really big project yet. Okay, guys, do we have any questions about our news article, or just any questions, guys? Anyone?
How do you push this to GitHub?
Okay. So it's exactly the same, man. So I just created, what was it called? My news app. Notice how whenever I was in Yosemite, I had no master. And when I moved into my news hub, now I have a master, right? So let's do git remote -v. We can see that this code that I have right now is not being compared to any other code. There's no code to compare it with. So in order to share this, we'll go to github.com. We'll create a new repository, React News app. We'll say create new repository. And this is the same old step, guys. We're just about to push a whole bunch of files to the internet. So inside of our application, we add the remote. So now we can do git remote v, and we can see that this is the remote repository that we're comparing ourselves to. Okay? So I'll do git status. We have a bunch of files. I'll do git add all, git commit message, initial commit, news articles working. Okay? Now we can do this last one. The reason why we're doing U is because we're setting it as our upstream. Basically, we're saying this repository at github.com/parentimetran/React News app is the code that we'll always compare our code to. There can be the same copy of code in many places. There's not only one computer in the world that can run Facebook. They have a whole army of developers. They all need to have copies of this code, and they all need to be able to compare it to some authoritative truth. Authoritative truth. That means we need 1,000 developers come together, right? And they say they're all going to work on the same project. These 1,000 developers need to decide who is the one who has the master copy, which one is the truth of the source code, because we're all working on it at the same time, and that's what we're doing. So I'm going to do git push upstream origin master, and then momentarily I'll refresh this page, and we'll see the code that we just wrote. So let's refresh. And we can see all this code that we just made 19 minutes ago. Any questions, guys? Okay, guys, keep working. I'm gonna save this and upload it.